So the last part of this chapter is resources. Whether a species can survive or not, it depends on two things. Okay, the availability of a good condition, that's in a suitable environment, and the availability of resources. So, what's resources? Resources are the energy and material a species need. What does it need? Energy and material. Energy is refers to food, and material it refers to things like shelter. So what does it mean? Energy and material. That's resources. So if I told you the survival of organism depends on one in a habitat, that depends on the availability of resources and suitable environmental conditions. Okay. For example, water and sunlight are examples of resources that are often required by animals and plants. All of us need sunlight and water. That are the best examples, So sunlight, basically if there was no sunlight, there won't be light, and also water. So these things are an important resource in our daytime, or anything you go for the survival of the organism. It needs to have these things, water and sunlight. After the resources, we have the niche. What's the niche? Niche is the way of life, okay? Or the role that an organisms do in an environment. Let's take an example of me. My role in this environment is I'm a teacher, so that's considered with my niche because it's the way of my life, okay? So the niche include all the things that's considered with an organism, like its habitat, like it is food, okay? So niche is a way of life or the role the species play in its environment. The niche include a range of conditions that the species can tolerate, okay? These things are all examples of niche, the things that it can tolerate, the methods by which it obtains resources, that under the offspring it has the time of reproduction and all the interaction with the environment. We can take an example. Let's say a rabbit and a whale. They have very different niches. They have very different ways of obtaining food, and also they have very different habitats, and also their reproduction rate and timing is very different. After niche, we have different niches, okay? So according to the organisms and their niches, we have two types of organisms. According to the niche difference between organisms, we have two types of niches. The first one is generalist, the second one is specialist. Generalist, it is in its name, okay? It is general. Like it can endure variety of environments, and it can live almost anywhere, just the places that are livable, and also can obtain food, can get food like almost anywhere. But the specialist is not like that. It needs a special, like him says specialist. It needs a special place to live and it needs a special food. Okay, whereas an example of koala. Koala lives in Australia and it feeds on a special leaf. Okay, that only exists in there. But we can take an example for generalists like us humans. What can we eat? We can eat meat. We can eat plants. We can live in the cold and in the both weathers. In normal weathers, we can eat every type, variety types of plants, variety types of meat, like that like the seafood, the normal food that we eat. Okay, this all makes us a generalist. So there's few things that make us generalists. It's a question also you will see why humans are considered a generalist. We can say that man endure or they can face or tolerate. They can tolerate a lot of different environments, and also they have variety of resources. Okay, they have variety of resources. So generalists are species with broad niches. Okay, they can tolerate a range of conditions and use variety of resources. Okay, They can tolerate a range of conditions and use variety of resources. This can be the answer why I told you why humans are generous. Special species that have narrow niches, okay? This one have wide broad niches, this one have narrow niches, okay? Such as the koala are called specials as like folk. The only thing that's left now, the section reviews and the chapter review, and this chapter will be end. So listen to the section review of 5.1. Okay, how does population is different from a community? Population it includes all the organisms in the same species, Pastor. All organisms in the same species that live in the same place at the same time. But community it includes all the organisms that live in a particular area. Okay, it includes all the organisms living in a particular case. That's community. Without the non-living things, if it was not the living things also, it won't be. It was describe the example of interdependence. We took a lot of the examples of interdependence. We can go back to it, how interdependence work and how the organisms or living and non-living things are connected to each other. What is the organizational difference between biosphere and ecosystem? The biosphere is the broadest one. It includes all organisms, the living and non-living things. It starts 20 kilometers from the crust to the atmosphere. And ecosystem, it includes all the living and non-living things in a particular area. Okay, it can be big area, can be small area, but it includes all the living and non-living things in a particular area. What parts of Earth form the biosphere? What part of Earth forms the biosphere? As I said, 20 kilometers from the crust of the Earth till the atmosphere, all of it is biosphere. And all the parts of it that supports life, okay? Because biosphere, it doesn't support life, it doesn't consider to be bio, okay? It is bio because it supports life, so any part from the crust 11, 20 kilometers to the atmosphere supports life, that means it is a biosphere. What is the necessary condition for the existence of an ecosystem? Ecosystem treaty it doesn't require, actually it has requirements like living things, okay, and non-living things interacting with each other. That's the definition. So the living things mean organisms that produce oxygen like plants, okay, and we need organisms that support this plant by producing carbon dioxide. We need water, sunlight, and all this. But saying what are the necessary conditions? So we can say what are the conditions? Availability of water, sunlight, and organisms. So the availability of living thing and non-living thing like sunlight, water, and also organisms. That's it. Critical thinking, it says, during a visit to the desert, he noticed a camel, 3 snakes, a few kinds of small cactus plants, and hundreds of berry plants. What might an ecologist call this group of living organisms? What might I call? Okay, at the first glance, you might call the ecosystem because you said you are visiting a desert, okay? You are visiting a desert and you saw all these things, living and non-living things. But at the end of the question, because the desert there's no living things and other things are living things, so you think it's an ecosystem. But if you look at the end of the question, it says group of living organisms. What do you call this group of living organisms? So it's only that living organisms without the desert. So the answer will be a community. And we have the section, the other section review here. 5.2, it says list 3 abiding factors that can affect an organism. List 3 abiding factors. Abiding factors is the factors that are normally. So I answer sunlight, temperature, water. Okay, these factors can affect an organism. But this following set indicate about an organism. It indicates the limit of that organism. So we can say the answer. It indicates the capability of the organism to face variable environmental conditions. Okay, it indicates the capability of the organism to face variable environmental condition, and also the ability for it to live in that place. Okay, what's migration? Give an example of migration. Migration is a movement of the organisms from to is the movement of organism to more favorable environment. Okay, is give an example of migration. We can see seasonal movement or seasonal migration of crabs, seasonal migration of birds. How is the organism niche different from habitat? The niche is the way of life. Okay, niche is the style of life, the way of life, but habitat, it is the place that it lives in. Okay, list 2 factors that might cause an organism to restrict its use of resources. So you have resources. Give me 2 reasons why that I can't use that resources. So let me say there's a food, but I can't reach it. Maybe because of harsh condition. Okay, because of harsh condition, like it is very dangerous to get it, or it's very cold to get it, or you can say because being a specialist. Being a specialist, you can use erratic resources. You have nano niches. So being a specialist and also harsh conditions that the resource be in. Explain why 2 different species do not occupy exactly the same niche. You can say there's a lot of answers. You can say because of competition. Chapter review, vocabulary. I will leave these ones for you. Okay, just to see if there's anything hard in how to be and different from an ecosystem. It's easy. This is about the factors that influence you easy. In what way this migration is similar to dormancy? Both of them are escaping from unfavorable condition or going to more favorable environment. Distinguish between regulated and performance easy. These ones regulate data or regulate data condition. Performance do not regulate data condition. They change according to the environment. Multiple choices will be for you. Question 30. Dividing related factors in ecosystem can interact. 50 examples of such interaction. Easy. What is the tolerance curve? What are the applications? Tolerance, what's tolerance curve? We can say the definition here was about the application does it have an ecology. It can show us the capability of the organism, as we said before. I told you the answer before that. Okay. These 2 examples of environmental conditions that are avoided by blending water. Easy. Anything that makes the life of this life harder and makes you go into hibernation. It can be an example, for example, extreme cold or lack of resources for food. Is that the diagram below of a tolerance curve briefly describe the condition in each zone of tolerance and gravity fish may have. We had optimal range. The optimal range, the performance of the organism, it is at its best or at its peak. Stress zone, the performance is reduced. In tolerance, there's no performance. After tolerance limit, the organism going to be dead. Describe question 18. Start 2 methods not including accumulation that organisms use to respond to unfavorable condition in their environment. Very easy. What are the 2 methods? We only studied 2 methods, and was migration and dormancy. Ecologically speaking, humans are perceived terms rather than specialists. Explain why. I explained why when we study generalists and why humans are generalists. So that was it for this chapter, and I hope you understand very well. I just wanted to give you a quick review for the whole chapter. Okay. So at the first, we started with ecology. What's ecology? It's the interaction between organisms, both the living and non-living components of the environment. After that, the levels of organization. After that, the first level is biosphere, the broadest one. It includes all organisms and living and non-living things with the 20 kilometers from the crust called atmosphere. After that, ecosystem. After that, we said what ecosystem is composed of living and non-living things in a specific area. This is the levels of organization. This is an important figure. After that, community and population and organisms. We said community includes all the living things in a particular place. Population includes all the living things within the same species. It must be the same species, okay, at that organism. It's the smallest level of organization, and we studied what the scientists focus in each level. TTM in ecology, we studied interconnectedness as very important and very good examples in it. After that, the service in the ecosystem, we took the example of how the oak tree affects the Lyme disease, rise and fall of the island species. Here we studied biography and what's biography. After that, ecology of organisms, what's habitat, the place that we live in, biological and biotic factors. The biotic factors are the factors that are living and affect organisms. Biotic factors are factors that are non-living and affect organisms. The changing environment, how the environment change, and also what's the response to it. After that, we study the tolerance curve, where we said that it's a performance versus values of environmental variables such as temperature, pH, oxygen ratio or oxygen percentage ratio, anything that came it. And this is the example of a temperature tolerance curve versus the swimming speed of a fish. After the acclimation, light adaptation, control of internal condition, performance, and also regulators. We took an example of salmon that's a conformer and also regulated step from unsuitable conditions. We have two methods, dormancy and also migration. Migration are two types, immigration, emigration. After that, what's resources, okay, and what is niche, and the niche difference between the organisms that we have generalists and also a specialist, and that's it. Hope you enjoyed. Bye bye. Bye bye.